Nice to see everyone. Okay. So let's just be together here for a moment. As I like to say, blown wide open knowing. Just knowing that we're here. I'll keep letting people in as we connect here. Not knowing anything in particular, any particular objects. All the objects are fine, but not knowing any particular objects, just simply pure knowing. I. Thoughts come and go, sensations come and go, the sensory objects come and go, emotions come and go. All movements, those are all movements. But whenever you look, this subjective I knowing is always the same. I don't come and go. So for a moment, instead of attending to any objects, just know that I am here, only now. Simple being, pure simple being. Not being anything in particular, any name, any form, any story, any spiritual concept, even awareness, nothing, just simply pure being. This is peace, right? In this moment. This is silence in this moment also. In this moment, your whole story doesn't exist at all. In this moment, you see you have no history at all, no history, and no future. You only are. So I just say, let's just be for a moment. How simple. Do we need any spiritual books for this? Any spiritual concepts or philosophies for this? Any spiritual practices or sadhanas for this? To be simply who you are now. All those books, all those concepts, all those philosophies, all those sadhanas, all those spiritual practices are all happening in mind. That's all they are. They're only a movement of mind, all of them. They're not a movement towards truth or anything like that. That's a, if you recognize, you'll see the silliness, the folly, you'll see the folly of thinking any of that brings you to truth. Of course it doesn't. Why? Because you're already truth now, pure being. So, if for whatever reason in the course of one's life, they're ready to be finished with all of that folly and to just start living a very ordinary, simple life of pure being, then this message is very simple. And it's that you're free already now. That's good news, isn't it? My only message is jump in, the water's fine. You can swim. And yes, life provides plenty of unpleasant experiences and plenty of pleasant experiences. Sometimes it seems like there's more unpleasant experiences. So I know a lot of the reason people seek or is because they want a panacea for their psychology. They want something to solve all of their psychology and never have to experience anything unpleasant again. But that's just not life. I don't know what life you're living. So when I speak of freedom, it's not that things don't appear that are pleasant and things that appear that are unpleasant. You know, we're in the world with relationships and jobs and governments going crazy and here in India, buses running you off the road. I mean, there's plenty of fodder to elicit emotions, and that's all fine. No, what's possibly wrong? If the human being wasn't intended to experience emotions, including anger, including sadness, including whatever the emotion may be, if the human being wasn't intended to experience those, then it wouldn't. But the human being does. So why argue? And one form of arguing is called the spiritual path. That's a great form of arguing with what is. So what I say freedom is not that you don't experience whatever appears, because you're not in control of anything. Everything that comes and goes, it comes and goes. But in the normal human mind is very fixed and fixated when something appears. And then that doesn't flow by naturally. So for most of us, and for all of us, something happens, and then we sometimes get stuck in that groove, for a long time. People who are mentally ill can maybe get stuck in the same groove their entire life. That's extreme, but not so unusual. I say a healthy mind, a person who knows freedom, who really knows freedom and health, experiences everything else everyone else experiences, but there's no dam in the river that's stopping the flow of the water. There's no one here arguing. So then whatever appears flows by very naturally. And by flowing by very naturally, we see that nothing has been touched, actually. Why I first introduced us to this pure being, because I want us to see this pure being, who I am, is that which is here now, that which is here before, during, and after everything that comes and goes. This I am knowing is here always. That doesn't change. So when this is your fundamental being, then whatever appears, appears just like for anyone else, and then it flows by just like a wave in an ocean. A wave in an ocean doesn't last forever, does it? There's nothing botching up that wave, keeping it alive forever. It comes, and then what's left is pure ocean. So you essentially are pure ocean, pure being. And on your surface appears movements like waves. Movements can be any emotion, any experience, pleasant or unpleasant. Those movements come and those movements go, and there's no one here to create or suppress them. So what's wrong with them? Nothing. But when you know freedom as not just intellectually, which people here recognize what I'm speaking about, it's not intellectual. When you know it as your core, then I call this health. And then life flows by and all is well. And so when it comes to be time in a person's life, who knows why, for the message of freedom to become who they are, not just an experience or a philosophy, but to become, I call a paradigm shift, a shift of being, that this is your fundamental truth. No longer your mind and your story is no longer your fundamental truth of who you are. I am Sal, I am this story, I am this, religious or spiritual or social or political belief. I am this trauma, I am all of this. The paradigm shift is that's no longer your fundamental being. Those things are the movement of waves that come and go. But now you know yourself fundamentally as free. And I know it. You all recognize what I'm saying as I speak in the beginning of this call. So then what has to happen is that has to become a paradigm shift. So that's your fundamental being and knowing. That's what life is for you then. And that's the message of the work that I share, to really have a real paradigm shift. And then things come and go. Mind comes and goes, thoughts come and goes. Everything comes and goes. No problem. There's no problem with anything. But the confidence and doubtlessness of freedom is already, it's final, That's what I want to share. That's what I share. That's what I want to share. That's what I want people to recognize. And people do, that come to my intensives, and people here on these meetings. You can recognize what I'm saying. So just for a moment, just be pure being just now. This is the eternal sunshine of you. Your eternal sunshine of knowing, of being, is always here. It's never not here. Welcome home. Does anyone like to talk about anything?
My question is, something happens. Not even happening. It's such a shift that happens, but then the mind comes back, and I'm lost a bit in the mind, but still feel quite at home as well, but not fully. And that's my question to you. Is this how it is, or?
Yes, of course, because first of all, you're never lost in the mind, because there's no, the truth is there's only you, and that includes thoughts. So you're not lost in the mind, you're found in the mind. But that has to dawn on you, but we get to all of that in the intensive. But the main thing is that having an experience like you had spontaneously that lasts for however long it may last, it can be a minute, it can be a few years, but then something starts closing again and you think you've lost something. That's because you have to live freedom. And living freedom means being a bhakta, devoted to truth. And that's a huge part of the intensive. I don't get so much in depth on these calls because there's not enough time.
Yes.
But so the thing is, there's still an idea, and it's true for everyone, and it can even be subtle, that freedom has something to do with the experience of always being in peace or whatever it may be. But that's not what I'm talking about. Because if I always use the same analogy, my partner Bindu and I driving down the road in India, and the bus is running us off the road, and she's yelling at him and I'm yelling at him. It's not peace. Doesn't look like peace, but it doesn't make me question, is my freedom? What's wrong? Nothing is wrong. So freedom is not an experience. Freedom is a final, irreconcilable knowing that I'm free. And then all of that movement stops. And then whatever comes, comes, and whatever goes, goes. And I say that's the arguer, the end of the arguer with what is. So even it's great you had that experience, but in a subtle way, what's happening is there's the ego there saying that I had something and I lost it. And that's the arguer with what is, because what is only this now, whatever it might be. It could be an emotional experience. It could be an angry experience. It could be the bus running you off the road. It can be sadness. There's no one here any longer thinking there's something wrong with anything. That's freedom, not any particular state or experience. You see what I mean?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And even in many situations, it feels like that. But, when you sometimes sit in your many thoughts, emotions, let us feel like we are lost in those. And I think maybe the intensives will help me.
It will. Who cares? Get lost in thoughts. What's the big deal? First, if you think there's something wrong with getting so-called lost in thoughts, I say there's nothing wrong with it. I say there's nothing wrong with anything, as a matter of fact. That's my problem. I can't find anything wrong with anything, including a big thought stream. So what? What is it? I don't care. Where is it now, by the way? How many thought attacks have you had in however many years you've been alive?
Many. Impossible to count.
And what about right now? Where are they?
Gone.
So does it matter?
No, not really. But, and I totally agree with you, but sometimes those strong emotions when you feel for, your job or something else, you feel so out of life. That's
Yes, because life doesn't, like I said before, life isn't always pleasant. Of course not. That's if life was intended to be always pleasant, then it would be. But apparently, I can speak for myself. Apparently, life wasn't always intended to always be pleasant. And so it's the end of the arguer that's freedom, not the trying to control any experiences or get to a final state where you're never affected by anything again. That's a lark. That's a fool's errand right there. That means you're not free. That means you're bound. You're bound to having to be in a particular state to know that you're free.
Yes.
And if you're not in that particular state and you don't know you're free, that's not freedom, that's bondage.
Yes, agreed.
If freedom is knowing once and for all without any possibility of doubting, that's it. I'm free. Live this life, one foot in front of the other. What comes, comes, and what goes, goes. That's my work. That's my work in a nutshell,
Yes, I totally. And I would love to join the intensive. I'll try my best.
Cool. Yeah, you can just apply online and then you get some.
Okay.
You can look at the information. At least look at the information and see if it's for you.
Sure, I will.
Good to meet you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Hi, Veronique. How are you?
I'm fine, Sal.
Thank
you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. In a general things, it feels like lately I just had trust. And sometimes, the ego or whatever. And I always, even with my staff, which were going as well through tough moments, or us, which are going to tough moments in South Africa, I just keep on trusting. What is, as you know, and I keep on trusting. And sometimes I've got even tears. How can I trust, But I do trust. And as we know, it comes, it goes. And that trust is so liberating. Would you talk about that, as you always say, about that trusting what life hammer us with?
Yes. I don't speak so much about trust, but that's good. What I would say, and one thing that we speak about a lot during the the part of the intensive that's about devotion to truth is that when you know your essential being is free, then you know you're safe, no matter what
Yes.
comes and goes. Because what we're normally looking for is security and safety in the world. And of course, there's no
Yeah.
possibility of real security and safety in the world because everything changes. Nothing is stable. And there terrible things happen. So if we're looking in the world for security and stability and trusting in the world, then we're in trouble. But when we know our essential being is free, then we know we're safe. We know we're fulfilled. We know we're secure. And that's our true security. So in that way, you could say it's trust, but I would say, I just don't necessarily use the word trust. I say know your own safety, your own security. And by
Okay.
knowing who you are, then you're no longer dependent so much on the movements of life that come and go for your sense of well-being.
Yeah.
Because if we're dependent on the movements of life that come and go for our sense of well-being, we're screwed. Because the movements of life sometimes suck, of course, But when we
Yeah.
know our essential being is fine and safe and secure and whole and fulfilled and complete and at peace, then the movements of life don't have that much power. So that's how I would speak about it. But how I think it's
Yeah.
related, It's all much simpler than we think, Don't know anything except what is now. Putting one foot in front of the other. That's how I live. Ian, did you want to say something? There you go.
Yeah, just following on from that conversation, Sal. I know nothing, but I can also agree with Veronica in as much as I feel of late, and I'm since the intensive, I've had quite some strong stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
But what's become apparent is in knowing thyself, if you like, it doesn't take so much of a hold. In fact, there's more the direction of including it. And I'm a little bit like Veronica. There's a part of me wants to include it, perhaps not to transcend, but just in the knowing that it's just life.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And I know sort of, I feel that I've softened towards life, and how that's felt is actually the body used to get really sensitive to things in life, and now just including them and remembering what I am is going in the direction of softness. But also, like you were saying before, I know it can turn in any direction at any point, and I have to be willing to include, or not I willing, but
I know what you're saying. Of course. That sounds great, though, Ian. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Since the intent, that's really good. Yes, you can. That softening is a good word because we're very much trying to control our experience and control life. But the truth is, we don't have that. We don't have control.
Well, I find sort of resistance is almost like a sense of violence towards what is.
Excellent.
And that softening is, I don't need to understand it. Sometimes I can see what my ignorance was.
Yeah.
So I don't need to understand it. Just in knowing that, I'm not even, just in being.
Yeah, that's it. Just in being, exactly. That's right. That's good. It's great. Really good, man. I'm glad to hear it. And the longer you live like this, I call living freedom, you see softening even more, opening even more, So there's
Yeah.
nothing you need to do anymore. You already know. Just keep being as you are, that's all.
Just carry on a little bit. There's a little bit that sort of can confuse me, in as much as knowing that I'm not the doer, but it's also clear, and I don't even know if I could say practices, but breath work, being in nature, coming to satsang, certainly encourage a sense of remembrance.
Sure. That's right. I totally.
And I have no idea whether it's a doing or a happening or not, but it can feel like it. That sense of devotion to remembrance. That's maybe all part.
Yes, that's great, and that's as I say, and that's a big part of the intensive. That's huge. It's necessary, that sense of devotion. But you don't create that about yourself. That's there, or not. So all these things that there is doing, of course, there's just no one that's doing any of it. You see, so of course there's doing. I do a lot. If you look at I'm making albums, I'm making a house, I'm doing intensives, I got a new book working on. It looks like I'm doing a lot. And so there is doing, there is action, there's movement, but there's not a creator of that. You see what I mean? That's, as you know from the intensive, what it means, So whatever the movement there is, which you don't create, if it's to go and walk in nature or do breath work or be on these meetings, it looks like a doing. It's not a doer there. It's just the movement that's happening there.
I hear you, Sal, because since the intensive, there's almost been a lack of interest in coming to this or going to the Lion's Den, because there's almost a knowing there is nothing to do.
Yeah. Well, my intention is that I say hello to someone for 2 seconds, and that's it. They never have to see me again. But that's not realistic. So I offer intensives, and then I offer the Lion's Den, because people do need support generally. But it's only, you know what I mean? That's it. But my intention is for everyone to be free and say, nice to meet you. See you later,
Yeah. No, it's beautiful to meet you today, Sal, and the rest.
Yeah, everyone is great. I know. But also, because this work is not trivial, as you know, Ian, and everyone else. That's why we have the Lion's Den meetings every week. And we have friends, and everybody's so beautiful on those meetings, and everybody just likes to be together. And then it just supports, because this is not trivial. One intensive is great, and for a nice big shift like you've had, that's wonderful to see, But let's be realistic. It's been a lifetime, and it's been humanity's lifetime of momentum in our poor little minds, keeping us in doubt. So additional support is just completely natural, of course. That's why I do the meetings, Glad to hear it, Ian.
Thank you, fella.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing and filling me in. It's good to hear. Good to hear.
I think for me as well, the biggest part is, Sal, is getting used to being nothing, if you like.
Yeah.
You stop picking it up, which is so habitual and is okay.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah. Because it's been a lifetime of trying to be something. And really, in our Western cultures, really, that's hugely important. Be something. Don't be a nobody. Be a somebody, It's really deeply entrenched in our minds to be something. And so, of course, that's just a habit, though, isn't it? But what a relief just to be, isn't it? And what's lost? Nothing. Nothing is lost. You don't lose anything. You still, whatever is going to happen is going to happen anyway. I make music. I love to play the guitar. I make a house. I'm still doing all of this stuff, but there's an ease of it about it. You know what I mean? There's just one thing happening after another. That's all. Just being. Beautiful, man.
It was like I had a bad virus. It was like I had a bad virus, and that virus was called self-concern. And now it's like a mild cold.
That's great. Going in the right direction. That's great. Really good. I remember you had a lot of laughter on the intensive too. I was always happy to see that.
Oh, that's a beautiful virus too.
Yeah, the intensive is beautiful. The virus, the intensive is a virus. I stick that virus in your head and then that virus spreads, Yeah, you had a lot of laughter on the intensive, man. That was nice. Really good. This is the life. This is it, man. This is it. These bodies are going to drop one day. How do you want to live? When are you going to be free? 10 years from now? Next lifetime? How about now? This is it, man. This is your shot. This life now. Be free. Hi, Janet. Wait a second, Janet. Hold on. I think I see some aliens behind you.
Oh, oh no. Hey, Sal.
Janet.
I'm in Croatia at the moment, so I don't know, maybe there are aliens here.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was a really great discussion with Ian, and I just wanted to just add a little something, side note to that, was that I've kind of realized that I had a quite a big belief system of, for me, in order to succeed in life, I needed to suffer,
Yeah.
That was like a bit of a story in my head. And I realized that essentially there was actually a lot of joy that wasn't being given a lot of space. So I think there's like this gradual shift now of like making space for that now.
That's great. Beautiful. Yeah. Come on. That's what this life's supposed to be, man. It's called the play of Leela. It's not called the suffering of Leela. It's called the play of Leela. Excellent.
So it's a nice shift. So just made me think of that with Ian laughing and yeah.
That's good. Really good. Glad to hear it. Thank you. Yeah, I think most of us have that thing that we have to suffer through life to get something, The suffering artist, of course, is a big thing, the suffering artist, or you have to kill yourself to get somewhere, I'm too lazy to suffer. Whatever is appearing is what I do. I don't know anything else. In this moment, this is what I'm doing. These words coming out of this mouth. And then in the next moment, it'll be something else. I don't know. That's good. Great, Janet. Where's Brian? I think Brian is here. Brian, are you here? I know, no, Brian is here. Our resident alien expert. Brian, you're not here. Okay, I thought I saw him, but maybe not. Oh, no, he isn't. Okay, never mind. And so I was talking to a friend on the Lions Den yesterday, actually. And she's well informed of the world situation right now and what the governments are doing. And it's really, well, maybe she feels better now, but it was really troubling her. And I can understand, because if you really see what's going on with the powerful people or whatever, and if you think that you're dependent upon what the elites do or whatever Klaus Schwab does or whatever, then you're going to be miserable. You're going to be miserable. So we were speaking about freedom. That means, I don't know how I got in this, but because I know we're all affected, these days by the pandemic and the world censorship and all these things that are clamping down on our freedom in a way, relative freedom. But we have to know the real freedom, which means I'm free even if Klaus Schwab owns the world. You know who he is, the World Economic Forum guy. And so what I like to say is that, like I think it was Shakespeare, render unto Caesar what is rightfully Caesar's. So what does that mean? So there's only what is. Ramana says there's only the self. I say absolute and former one. There's only I, and I am, there's only God, you could say also. That means everything is God, including Klaus Schwab. And since there is no doer, no one's the doer of anything. Everyone can only be as they are. And if Klaus Schwab is the owner of the world, then that's what it's supposed to be. So render unto Caesar what is rightfully Caesar's. It's his. It's rightfully his. Because he's God, just like you and me and everyone else, There's only God. That's just a metaphor. I don't believe in God, but there's only I, there's only the self, there's only what is. So then if we're affected by something like that, for example, and it's ruining our life, then we have to hear the message of freedom. The message of freedom is, if Bill Gates wants to own the world, so be it. It doesn't affect my freedom, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know why I brought that up. Just I was reminded of the conversation yesterday, Because if we get too involved with all that stuff, and I watch the news every morning with my coffee, so I'm very well informed, and I find it fascinating, the sociopathy of these people in control. I'm fascinated, but it's not ruining my day, So I think it's important that we recognize freedom in the midst of all of the madness that's going on right now, because if we're a victim of all of that, there's no hope, So now is a great time in the world of complete, utter insanity that's going on for you to know freedom. What better time? What grace is happening right now? What grace that these absolute madmen, lunatics are running amok. What a gracious movement, because it says to me, you're free, baby. Thank you very much. And if it doesn't, then it's okay. But then you're falling for all of that. You're being victimized by something which is not really real in some way, you know. Hi, Robin. How are you? Here you go. Let me find you a second, Robin. Hold on. There you go. Hi, Robin. Nice to see you.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this whole Roe v. Wade thing has really got me. And I wrote a letter to the editor the other day. But
the editor
there's
of what?
The paper. I haven't even looked into it. I just figured I'd send it to the editor of the local,
what paper?
The local newspaper. Like
okay.
Ours is, our local newspaper.
Okay, I got you.
You know, just a way to put a counter opinion out into the world. And but there's definitely a part of me that's like, well, what's the point? What is the point? And I keep on thinking that what you would say is, well, it really doesn't matter what you do. You're just going to do what you're inclined to do, whatever your conditioning inclines you towards. So write the letter, don't write the letter. It really doesn't matter. So,
not that it matters or doesn't matter. It's just what is. You know, that's what you're compelled to do. You don't choose that. That's the move that happens there. So what's wrong with it? Nothing.
Yeah, right. So like I came home the other night thinking about it, heard some horrible stories on the radio in relation to that topic. And just, you know, this letter kind of came out. And so whether or not I send it, we'll see. But it is a strange paradox or something, I guess, just this whole, we're completely free. And yet in the midst of apparent complete oppression, sometimes it's hard to know what the right thing is to do. But I think that you would say there is no right thing to do. Is that right?
There only is what is. Who's to judge? Only a mind and ego. And I'm not villainizing ego, but only an ego can judge right or wrong. What is. If the intention is there for you to write a letter, who can say that that's wrong? It's true. It's there, isn't it? So am I going to say it's wrong? Of course not. That's why I say I don't think there's anything wrong with anything. If that intention appears there for you, you didn't create it. How can I judge it right or wrong? It simply is. You see? I'd have to have an fucking egomaniac to judge who's, oh, you're wrong to have that thought. What the hell? You know what I mean? That's what is. And then from as we also see on the intensive for a 2-week period, from that intention comes the motivation to do it or not. You can have an intention, you can have a billion intentions, but never comes the motivation to actually act from that intention, right? Sometimes. And so then if the motivation then is there as well, you don't create or choose that either, do you?
No.
And then from the intention comes the motivation. And then from the motivation, either the action to do it or not will appear. And so you don't create that either, do you?
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I just heard you talking about watching the news in the morning and then going on about your day and being completely unaffected. And it's like, can we be completely unaffected? I mean, or maybe again, it's just either actions happen or not. Either
have a holiday right now, blown wide open knowing, blown wide open. Just really get real for it here. Get real. Only here and now, pure knowing. No past, right? There's only this moment, isn't there? Is that true or no?
Yes, true.
So then you have no history then, do you? Because you are this, aren't you?
Right.
You have to go in your mind and create, the Robin's story in past, and that has a history. But this knowing here, that's always here, it's only ever always now, isn't it? So then it has no history. It's only ever always now, right?
Yeah.
Is this affected by what's going on?
Technically, no.
No, but the body mind is touched. So I don't say to be completely unaffected. I say it's not going to ruin my day, because I look at the news and I look at these maniacs too, and sometimes some anger appears. But what am I going to? Come on.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Let someone else ruin my life, my own or being, my peace of mind? Come on. I'm not going to do that.
So, I mean, it seems like the way it looks, I don't know, words are so hard here, but is that we either take action or we don't, depending on our inclination.
Put it this way,
And-
either action happens or action doesn't happen. If we say we
Yes.
take action,
Okay.
there's no doer in there.
See, words, right. So action happens or not.
Yeah.
And then there's, it seems like what your work is about not resisting any of it. Like action happens or it doesn't, and there's no resistance to, or maybe there is resistance.
Yes, or maybe there is, and there's no doer of the resistance either.
Uh-huh.
There's no resistance. My work is about coming to the point where the arguer is finished. And that's the resistor, the end of the arguer with what is. That's the end of ego.
But it doesn't mean that we stop all action. It just means there's the end of.
It means there's no you to stop or start action. There's only action.
Mm-hmm.
Only action. And there's no longer another one inside separating itself from the action, claiming the doership of the action or resisting the action. That's the ego. See, that's separating. See, you are in the moment of action, you are the action. You're not doing the action. You are the action in the moment of action. And then ego comes in and says, wait a second, I have to resist this action, or I created this action. That's the ego separating itself. That can end. And then there's only action, and that's who you are. One, not two, one only, you see.
No looking forward, no looking backward. No story about it, just action happening.
Things can all happen too. Looking forward, looking back, story, they can happen. But there's a really a doubtless knowing that, okay, whatever comes, and whatever goes. I'm fine. I'm free. It's okay. I don't control anything. Even if an old thought from the so-called past can enter my mind, I have no interest. But what am I going to prevent the thought from? You know, how am I going to do that? So whatever comes, and whatever goes. It's a subtle point to get. The end of ego is not some state like we think with the Neo-Advaitins that something's going to disappear. The end of ego means there's no longer arguing with what is. What is. And there's no argument anymore. What is action, non-action, emotions, non-emotions, thoughts, non-thoughts. In the moment anything is appearing, that's what I am. There's no two. So my intensive is 4 parts. It starts off with, like on the beginning of an open meeting, a holiday, but that lasts for 3 weeks because it's a lot. Then the second part is learning about devotion to truth. Why you're fine, why none of this coming and going really affects you ultimately. Devotion to truth, living freedom. The third part is what we're talking about now, which is that the action happens. You're not the doer of the action, but there's action. That's 2 weeks also. That's big. And then the final part is full circle, which means there's only you. There's only God. You're it, man. There's the end of ego. There's no arguer any longer. Whatever is appearing in this moment is what I am. If it's anger at the bus driver, that's what I am. There's no one inside any longer saying, you idiot, you shouldn't be angry. That's ego separating itself, creating two. The person who's angry and the person who's mad at the person who's angry. In this, what I'm sharing, full circle, is only the anger appearing. That's what I am in that moment. And it flows by because it's like a wave in an ocean. Nothing has happened. No harm is done. So anything can appear for me too. Any emotion can appear, but it doesn't stick around long, it just doesn't.
And so you don't ever get that second part now that comes up of, oh, I shouldn't have said this, or I should have said that.
Even that thought can appear, but you see, but it has
it's just a thought.
Yeah, because, and I use this metaphor a lot, and it's a beautiful metaphor. If you see a rope, I maybe even used it last time, I don't know. If you see a rope on the ground that's been burned, completely burnt, it still looks like the shape of a rope, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But it can't be used to tie anything any longer because it's has the binding ability. So any thought can appear in my head too, even the thought you shouldn't have done that, but it no longer has any power behind it. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to you're getting what I mean. I see that. But this dawns on you, this paradigm shift happens where this is just your essential knowing, you know. And then you're no longer arguing with whatever that's why I say nothing wrong with anything. Any thought can come up in your mind. You don't control them, you don't create them. So how can they be wrong?
Yeah.
You can never be wrong. You're never wrong. If something appears, it's right because it's appearing, you know?
Yeah. Like you just can't help what's going to happen next or what thought's going to come next.
There's no you there to help anything.
Right.
See what I mean? There's still, and I get it, it's language, it's hard, but there's no you in there that can help anything. Doesn't mean there's no action. Doesn't mean there's no doing. It means there's no doer of the action.
Right. Yeah. I'm seeing how there's like this, taking this teaching of we're ultimately free. It doesn't matter really. Well, we don't control what happens. And on a surface level, one could say, oh, you just sit there like a doormat and don't do anything. But it's really taken deeper. Like we really aren't controlling our thoughts, our actions, our next whatever.
Look, when you're free, you do a hell of a lot more than when you're sitting on a meditation cushion trying to get enlightened and you're not doing a fucking thing. When you're free, start making music again, start building a house, start making your gardening, start being with your partner, start cooking, start whatever your art is, whatever your pleasure is, start living. That's what freedom is. You're no longer seeking and sitting on the cushion. You fucking live, you know. This life is it. That's full circle. That's the end of my intensive. This life is it, man. This is it. What are you waiting for? Start living. Not you. I'm not talking to you, Robin. I'm speaking.
It's okay.
You know what I get. I'm speaking rhetorically.
Right.
What are you waiting for? Start living already. This life of the play of Leela has been provided to enjoy, and sometimes not enjoy. You know what I mean? But it's not been provided to escape.
Right. Can you say just a little bit more about the devotion part? Because I have a real hard time with that. And
because we have the idea of devotion to God or the Guru. That's not what I'm talking about. Devotion, have a holiday now, here and now, you know that you are, right? Pure knowing. Pure knowing is wisdom. Pure knowing is jnana, wisdom, self-realization, pure knowing, right? You maybe get an idea. You will if you come to an intensive. This pure knowing you can call self-realization. I know that I am. I realize that I am, self-realization. And being it is devotion. You see what I mean?
No.
Devotion.
Okay, let me think about it. Okay. No, will you say it one more time?
I call it living freedom, to keep coming to this knowing, keep having a holiday. Keep coming. That's devotion to truth. Why? Because what you're mostly devoted to, and I speak rhetorically, what you mostly are devoted to is yourself, ego, my problems, my worries, my beliefs, my preferences. Oh my God, we're so fucking devoted to that, aren't we? Now I say be devoted to something else, nothing, freedom.
Yeah. Okay. That totally makes sense.
That's what I speak about.
Like when you talk about jumping off, that being willing to completely abandon the thought train and come back to what's happening now. That's the devotion part. That's
exactly right.
Got it.
Right. And without that, there's no chance of liberating your mind. There's no chance of becoming doubtless without that. That's huge, really essential. 2 weeks in the intensive, of course, as well. There's a lot to see in that. Why would you want to be devoted to that? That's what we find out in the intensive. Why would you want to be devoted to this? Well, there's a lot of beauty and recognition that we come to find out in this. Then, of course, you want to be devoted to that, you know?
Yeah. My last question is, I have one date of the 8 weeks that's going to be a hard one to swing. And so I want to make sure that I'm just having trouble finding that final piece of motivation to sign up for your next intensive to really make that one day happen. Because I have your audiobook, I have your written book, I have these meetings. And so part of me is just like, well, I'll just keep on doing that. So what is the big advantage of the intensive?
An intensive is And if you've been on an intensive, you'll know an intensive is an open meeting on steroids times 100. And if you don't think I'm joking, ask anyone who's been on one.
Okay, sold.
And also, if you have to miss one meeting, it's okay. I used to be more strict about it, but I understand it's 8 weeks. People have, but that's why there's audios. If you have to miss a meeting, even 2, then you can listen to the audios. It's okay.
Okay.
I now used to say, if you miss a meeting, you're out, but now I've softened it. I understand. You know, if you're here in India for 10 days, then of course it's easy. You're here for 10 days. But in the course of a person's life over 2 months, I've realized sometimes you have obligations, but we have audios you can listen to, so it's okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to see you again, Robin.
You too.
You'll be very happy if you come to an intensive, really.
I'm sure I will.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a question. It's not too different from a question I had before. And I kind of feel like I know what you're going to answer, but I still want to pose it because I find that there's a sense of transmission in these meetings, right? I think.
Okay.
So just an example, something happened in my life yesterday. Not super big deal, but it's kind of triggered a thought loop. Actually happened 2 days ago. It's triggered a thought loop. And I find myself kind of stuck in the thought loop. I tried to keep coming back to awareness and knowingness, but I keep being pulled right back in. And on some level, I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm still in this thought loop. And literally, like this morning, I wasted like 3 hours in bed before getting up, just going around in this thought loop. So it is a waste of time, and I don't want to be in this thought loop. But how do I manage that and be devoted to truth?
Let it rip. Let it rip. Sometimes a thought loop comes and it stays for a while. But what about right this moment now? Just right now for a moment. Just be, you said there's a transmission. It's not really a transmission, but I say some words that clears up, that stops the mind so we all recognize something together. There's nothing transmitting from me to you, but through the words that we share and the presence we are together, you recognize something like right now in this moment, right? Mm-hmm. Pure being, do you recognize this?
Yes.
So is there anything wrong that you had a thought loop for 2 days? Because how are you right this moment?
I'm fine.
Okay. So then in that you see that essentially you're fine, because at any time you come and look, you will see the same thing always, your entire life. Whenever you look and have a holiday, you see, I'm fine. Always. Even and the best time for that to happen is in the middle of a thought loop. For a moment, I make it easy. I don't say hold on to it for an hour. I say for a moment. In the middle of a thought loop, just take a moment for oh, okay, come out, the sun is shining. And then go right back in. Who cares? Let it rip.
But is it the purpose of, I don't even know there's purpose really, but devotion, isn't it? To not be in thought loops and being knowingness.
You can't control a thought loop. Devotion is in the midst of a thought loop to have a moment of recognizing the sun. That's devotion. And to do that more and more, of course. But you get to the point where you don't care if there's thought loops or not. The only problem with the thought loop is that there's also the person in there thinking that I have to get rid of this thought loop. I shouldn't have this thought loop, In truth, you don't control the thought loop, so it doesn't really matter, actually. But yes, the more you have holidays and the more you're devoted to truth, yes, the less and less these thought loops will grab you for longer periods of time. Of course, that's natural, isn't it?
And that's a natural development, that the more you're in your being, the less these thoughts will have fuel.
Yes, that's very true. But I don't like to paint a picture of a state of holiday or something like that and say you're never going to have a thought loop again. Excuse me, because something strong can happen in your life. And of course, what the natural thing of the mind is to go over it a bunch of times. So I don't like to paint a picture that you're never going to be in a thought loop again. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, yes, the more you're devoted to truth, it's likely that you'll be less and less affected by long thought loops. But why will I say never happen again? No, I don't want to paint that picture. I want you to know that you're free, even if a thought loop happens. Freedom doesn't mean a thought loop is never going to happen. Freedom means I know I'm free, even if a thought loop happens. Oh, that's a little different.
Mm.
Freedom means, this is my 2-word answer for enlightenment. Enlightenment means fuck it. What is. J. Krishnamurti says, when they say, what is the secret to your enlightenment or to your happiness? And he says, I don't mind what happens. And he meant he doesn't mind what happens in his mind, you know. I have thoughts too. Okay, so it is.
Yes, I don't mind thoughts, and I guess I shouldn't mind thought loops either, right? Shouldn't. See, like it's just layer over layer. But thought loops are less comfortable because you just
you have to keep hearing this message and keep looking at, I don't know if you're planning to come to an intensive, but if you do, more and more you'll hearing this message, you know, and you'll see. Okay. You'll see what I mean. More and more. That's why it's not trivial. That's why I have Lions Den meetings. That's why people come to even more than one intensive, because this is not trivial. The lifetime of these concepts and ideas, but it dawns more and more and more and more what I'm talking about, what freedom actually is, and then it's just like, oh, there's only this moment. Okay, one foot in front of the other. Okay, fine, and then just to build up that confidence, you just look again, have a holiday again. Come out into the sun. Yes, of course. What thought loop? And let me put it to you this way. If I had tapped you on the shoulder when you were 10 years old and said, Carolise, have a look now, if you were able to, have a look now, what would you have seen? The same thing you see now. I am pure being, free. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? So you haven't changed essentially at all. You're still the same. Only the movements of coming and going, the movements and the thought loops and the movements of this and that are coming and going. But you have a holiday, you see, you're always the same. If you have a holiday now, it's the same as the holiday you had 2 minutes ago, isn't it? So then you're fine, aren't you?
Yes, I'm fine.
Good. Keep coming to know that more and more. That's what the intensives, that's what the work is about. That's what devotion is about. Keep coming to know more and more till it's doubtless. I'm fine. And then you don't care what happens. So I don't think anything's wrong with anything.
And I guess when I said about the transmission, I guess what I meant was, would you agree that being kind of, having chats or sharing space and together kind of experiencing devotion or beingness helps you be in that holiday space?
Yes, hugely, of course. That's my job, you know what I mean, is to make sure everyone is in the recognition. That's what I do. And from the beginning of an open meeting and from the beginning of an intensive, it's 8 weeks of being in this recognition. And the Lions Den meetings, that's my only job. These words, the only real job is for you to be in this recognition. Some people think it's a transmission. I don't see it that way, but some people say it's very easy when I'm with you, Sal. Yes, because that's my only interest. That's the only thing I do, is I let you come to recognize this, and we all do this together. And we see we're all the same, by the way. There's no one higher or lower. In this recognition, we see we're all the same. So I don't use the word transmission, but I see what you mean by that. It's just easier. It's called satsang. That's what satsang is, isn't it? I don't use the word satsang either. But you know what I mean. That's what satsang means, is being together in truth.
Okay. I'm definitely interested in doing the intensive. I mean, I have to look at my schedule and how it fit. I'm also interested in doing the intensives in India.
Great.
That would require more coordination. But I'm definitely very interested because I feel like it's a priority. I mean, what greater priority could there be?
I'm glad to hear that. To me, there's nothing more important than that. There isn't. Everyone should come to know freedom in their life, and this world would be a lot nicer if we did, and your life would be nicer and this world would be nicer. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Sal.
Thank you. Karen, you wrote a message. Does anyone have any travel contacts on how to get to Tiruvannamalai from Chennai or Bangalore? The other one needs to do it by road. If you come to Tiruvannamalai, you're taken care of, man. Believe me. We have a whole 8-page document. We have our friend Garima who's going to help. We have lists of hotels. We have taxi drivers. If you sign up to come to India, you're going to be taken care of. Very, very much. I want everyone taken care of. That's important to me. And so don't worry. And India is a great place. It's a little scary. India seems very scary, but it's not. It's beautiful when you're here. It's a great, cool place, man. And we have hotels. We have a list of hotels. We've been looking at it. So once you, if you sign up, if you fill out the application and put in $100 deposit, then you'll get all the information and all the help you need. Contact with Garima, and she's very happy to help answer any questions. And then the online is starting in September 3rd if you're not coming to India, or both is good also. And the people that come to the intensives fall in love with each other. And we have Lions and meetings, and the Lions community of friends that meet without me, and meet a lot of really nice people. Ordinary, beautiful people, not the spiritually elite or anything like that. Not the spiritually advanced. Ordinary people that are ready for freedom. Does anyone else want to say anything? Very nice to be with everyone. Okay, great. See you in 2 weeks. The online starts in like, what's today, 17th, maybe 5-6 weeks or something. The online intensive if you want to join. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. Great to see you.